I think the biggest thing you have to realize is everybody isn't going to love everything you do. And it's just something you have to come to terms with, and you have to accept that. If you can get something that a lot of people like, and more than 50% like, then you're doing great. If you can make something that only 30% of the people like, 20%, you're still doing great. You know, it's hard. And believe me, there's already been people who have, you know, come out and said great things about this movie, and there have been people who haven't. But, you know, you can't live your life based on reviews. You can't live your career based on reviews. You have to continue to believe in your vision and your voice. You know, that's the thing I tell every filmmaker that I speak to. Is they said, what advice can you give me? And the greatest thing you should do is be true to you. Be true to what you want to do. Be true to your vision and what you want to accomplish. Don't try and be somebody else. Don't try and be something you're not. You know, you have to find your path, and you have to stick to that. And it's hard. And you know, there's going to be times when it's great. There's going to be times when it's awful. But you can't give up. To really make the film feel like everything was in motion the whole time, everything's moving. We never put the camera on a tripod throughout the entire film, with the exception of probably 2 shots in the whole movie. You know, the whole thing, there's very few times you'll ever see the camera really settle, and so there is a motion that I think continues through this whole movie, and it is, you know, a documentary, comedy, action, adventure, Osama, if you will. And you know, the people that we met, every country that we went to, even before we went there, we contacted local producers, you know, whether it's a production company or a journalist or some sort of like a local fixer. And these people would help us, you know, work weeks in advance, and we would tell them, here's people that we've, you know, here's who people that we've read stuff by, or people that we'd like to meet, you know, people who think certain ways, you know, that we've seen on the internet, and maybe there's people that you could recommend that also kind of have these viewpoints, and they would help us source people out. And then once you get there and get on the ground is really when a lot of things really happen. I mean, it's when you start talking to people mano a mano that doors really open for you. And so it was when we got to each one of these countries that I think things really started to catch fire. But if it wasn't for those local producers and those local journalists and fixers that we hired, I mean, we would have been, you know, out of our minds. We'd have been lost. And there's so many things that just happen along the way that you can't predict. You know, we were in the middle of Jerusalem that day when you know, rockets started falling like hail on Sderot, and so I said we have to go there immediately. You know, we have to go right now. And so we jumped in a car and we were down there that afternoon. You know, we were in that school 8 hours after it was bombed. I mean, it was it's terrible, but at the same time, when you're making a documentary film, you can't predict what's going to happen. And you know, if somebody said, you know, how do I define what a documentary is? And for me, you know, to make it, you know, 'cause I don't really make historical films. You know, I make documentaries that unfold in real time. And so I think a documentary is you're capturing events as they unfold in real time, and that's really what we try to do. Does my mustache have superpowers? Yes. Yes, it does. I'm keeping them myself, though. With Super Size Me, originally when I got the idea, you know, we were going to try and find somebody to kind of be the guinea pig in that movie. That was the first thought. It's like, well, we'll get somebody else to do that, and I'll shoot the film and I can focus on directing the movie. But there was, you know, once we started talking about it, I realized that there was no way I could trust that somebody else would not, like, at night sneak like a broccoli. Oh, he's not around, I'll have a carrot. You know, so that was the biggest reason why I was in Super Size Me to begin with, because I knew I wouldn't cheat. I knew I would probably not quit. You know, I would try and see it through as best I could. And I didn't expect it, you know, to take off the way it did. I mean, the movie was received by people. You know, it was like winning the lottery. You know, it's like suddenly we were at the Sundance Film Festival, and you know, I'd watched the Sundance Film Festival for years. You know, watching the coverage, watching people take movies there, and every year you watch the person who takes this little movie, who, you know, the movie blows up and it becomes a talk of everything. They sell it, and the movie goes out, and you know, so suddenly here I am in the middle of Sundance, and this little movie completely takes off, and it hits me, you know, that wow, I'm that guy. And suddenly you realize that you're that person that this is happening to right now, and I mean, it's overwhelming, and the whole process has been overwhelming, you know, ever since then. And I've been really fortunate to, you know, get to make the TV show for FX, which, you know, comes back in June for its 3rd season, which we're stoked about. And, you know, as long as I get to keep making movies, it'd be great. Don't give up. Don't stop. Don't quit. I graduated from college in 1993. I started working on everything I could. Any jobs I could get. I was working as a PA, as a schlub on any movie that would hire me, any commercial I could get a job on. But at the same time, I got to work on great stuff. I got to work on the set with, great directors. I worked on Bullets Over Broadway and got to see Woody Allen work with actors. I got to work on, Kiss of Death with Barbet Schroeder, who is a fantastic director. I got to work with Herb Ross, who directed almost every Neil Simon play that ever been made into a movie, because he did Boys on the Side. Yeah, and I mean, it's, for me, it was just, to get to watch people like that work, I never looked at everything as being a dead end. I looked at everything as being a stepping stone. And I think so long as you can just kind of look at your life as what it is and where you are, and always, keep your eyes on the prize of where you want to be and what you want to accomplish, then you can continue to turn everything that happens into a positive and into a step towards that. I would have really loved to have just, heard from him. How does this all end? How does it stop? We keep hearing about here's all the things that are going to happen, but, how can we just make it end? How can the killing stop? How can the killing of innocent people stop? How can we start to turn the tide so that this just goes away? And, maybe there would have been a real answer in there. Maybe there would have been like a real solution that we could actually hear. Or maybe it would have just been, a whole conversation filled with like cuckoo LaRue. It would have just been a whole bunch of crazy, in this conversation. Who knows? Who knows? But would have been awesome. There were so many things along the way that when you're in a moment or you're interviewing somebody or something happens, you're like, this is, you don't even, it's one of those things that for me, I don't even reflect on it there. It's like when you're in the car on the way home, you're like, that was incredible. And like when they said this, and like Daniel, the DP, Daniel Maricino, who is one of the most fantastic DPs on the planet, when we got our blood test before we went over there, because we had to find out our blood tests, one before just so we would know for the military, and the other in case anything happened, we would be able to tell a hospital when we were overseas. Mine came back O positive, his was B positive, and he was so excited when he got it back. He's like, B positive! And that's exactly what he is, because we'd be shooting for like 19 hours a day, and I'd be like, come on, we gotta get one more shot. And he's like, all right. It's just, he would be exhausted and tired and hate me, but at the same time, he was always just go, go, go. He was B positive. But back to what I was saying, is like we would be in the car, and he and I would just start talking about what had happened, the scene that had played out, and that was when we would really hit us like, that was great. That was a great thing. And there's so many things, it's the dinner with Ahmed and Zora that you see in City Muman, which is such a beautiful thing that just kind of, who knew it was going to happen and be that way, and the conversation would go the ways that it went. The Bedouins that we just stumbled upon in Afghanistan as we were driving down the road, and I was like, stop the car, we gotta go talk to them. And we jumped out of the car and went over and sat down and had tea with the Bedouins in the middle of Afghanistan. I mean, you never know. For me, you just have to go with it, and sometimes gold, but you never know until you just kind of go.